The vast majority of the public think this Labour government is, chaotic. Just over 12 months after Labour returned to power, a Sunday Times poll will make the miserable reading for the Prime Minister. A massive 72% of voters think this government is at least as chaotic as the previous Conservative one. And the poll also found that Sir Keir's personal approval rating, is at an all-time low. Ouch. Joining me now is the Deputy Political Editor of The Spectator, James Heale. James, another good day for Keir Starmer? Not. The papers, literally, even the left-wing papers, are not happy with him.
Absolutely not, Dawn. And I think that's a reflection of that welfare rebellion we saw on Tuesday, which really has, I think, thrown the Prime Minister's authority into disarray. A year after that massive Labour majority, I think it's clear that he sort of misread the mood of his own MPs on this subject. And now, of course, the voters, the markets, all of us here in Westminster are asking just exactly what he can get through in terms of this Parliament, in terms of the radical change that Britain so desperately needs.
It really is a pretty shocking poll, though, isn't it? I mean, I don't remember. I mean, I know it's a cliche. No, Margaret Thatcher wasn't exactly popular in her first year, but this is like 70% of voters think it's chaotic. I mean, that is a very high percentage.
Yeah, of course, 72%. And of course, that was the whole promise of this Labour government, which was stop the chaos, stop all the sort of Tory shenanigans, psychodrama. We will give you stability, the so-called stability premium. And actually what we've seen, Dawn, is that we've had far less of that. The headroom has been wiped out. The budget calculations have been all over the place. And so it's no surprise, really, that the public is now saying by almost three-quarters that it's as chaotic as the Tories.
And what was interesting, James, in this same poll is that 70% of voters, despite, obviously, we saw Rachel Reeves incredibly distraught and, you know, her record as Chancellor hasn't been great. I think we'll all agree to that. But 70% of voters think an MP crying doesn't make them think any worse of them. And most people in this poll are putting the blame very firmly on Keir Starmer's doorstep, not Rachel Reeves. He is, after all, her boss.
Yeah, absolutely. And the most striking thing about those tears on Wednesday was the reaction of the markets, which seemed to imply that because she seemed to be about to be sacked, therefore the gilt yields went up. So actually, perversely, that sort of public display of tears and distress might actually reinforce Rachel Reeves' position, really interestingly. But you're right, Keir Starmer is the person who is the man who gets all the blame. The buck stops with him. He appointed lots of the people in the political operation at Number 10. He's the one who promised the change. He's the face of all of this. And I think those interviews he gave last week to mark a year since becoming to office, in which he revealed he sort of was on the verge of tears several times. He disowned his own speech on Island of Strangers. There's been about 4 U-turns in 4 weeks. It's no surprise that he's getting a lot of flack because, of course, he is the one who promised that he would be so different from the 4 previous prime ministers that came before him.
No, indeed. And there's another poll today as well, James. This is a YouGov poll. It's a mega poll. There's a lot of people taking part in this one. That if there was a general election tomorrow, Nigel Farage's Reform Party would win 290 seats.
Yeah, I mean, that is a testament, I think, to the sense of a plague on all your houses. The real story of the last 12 months or so has been the collapse of the old two parties. I think in the general election, of course, they got around something like 60% of the vote. Now it's down to around sort of 45%. And of course, who benefits from that? Nigel Farage, very well positioned, not in government, someone who's seen as threatening to upend the old political order. And I suspect we'll see a lot more of this over the next 4 years. And I doubt that 1 or 2 of the main party leaders will be there in 4 years' time.
Well, yeah, it's going to be we may not like where we're going, but it's going to be very interesting as political commentators to talk about this one. Meanwhile, back on Rachel Reeves, last night accused of betrayal after it was revealed that everyone on the full state pension, a lot of people watching and listening today, will be forced to pay income tax as early as next year, even if they have no other income. What's going on with this story?
Well, this is about the triple lock, which is under which you increase the amount that pensioners get. And because of growth is going to be about 5.2% in earnings, it means that suddenly those who earn a pension will be getting qualified for the amount that you get to qualify to pay for tax. So that's £12,500 a year. And so I suppose in one sense, it's a good news story in the sense that pensioners are getting more money. But of course, it's not in the sense that they're getting dragged into paying for this income tax. And I think that's going to be the big story of the next 12 months, Dawn, in terms of taxation, which is that fiscal drag is going to be paying for a lot of the government's promises, including, of course, pensioners who are understandably quite annoyed about this, given all the promises that Labour made to them for the election. We had the so-called grey wall talk of Labour's focus on that. So it's going to be having to look at their pay slips and pensions and thinking, why am I now paying income tax? Particularly the most recently retired, who I think would have paid 35 years or so of insurance in 2016.
Yeah, no, it does affect people that retired after 2016, wasn't it? But money has to come from somewhere. So where's it going to come from? And it has to come from taxpayers, I think, James. Most of us honest know that. But let's have a look at Bridget Phillipson. I believe she was talking to Camilla Tominey early on today. Let's see what she had to say about this.
When it comes to future decisions in the budget, those are matters for the Chancellor. It is important that the numbers add up, that we adhere to our fiscal rules, and we've got a clear plan for making sure the country continues to see economic growth.
But it sounds like you're not ruling out tax rises.
Well, these are not decisions for me as Education Secretary. They're matters for the Chancellor. This will all be taken together in the budget. But what is critical, and what we've always been clear about, is that getting economic growth is absolutely essential, because if we grow our economy, we're in a much stronger position where it comes to our ability to invest.
Now, I believe she refused to answer that question. I think it was about 3 or 4 times. We all know politicians do that, James. I mean, if they told you it's raining, you'd have to go and check that outside the window, wouldn't you? But the other story is the Conservative Party have a cunning plan on how to save some money, and they are calling on Keir Starmer to restrict personal independent payments and sickness top-ups to universal credit to foreigners. Now... Sounds like a great idea, but obviously automatically begs the question, you were in power for 14 years, why didn't you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is all part of a speech that Kemi Badenoch is going to be giving on Thursday. The Conservatives are saying that almost $1 billion a month is claimed by households where there's at least one foreign national in those. So obviously almost sort of 12 billion a year or so. And they're going to be saying we need to review this. And currently the case is that you can claim PIP if you've been in this country between 2 of the last 3 years. They're probably seeking to overhaul that system with some exemptions for those with settled status. And they'd also increase the number of face-to-face assessments of personal independence payments. And this is a huge issue. Mild editor Fraser Nelson has done a documentary looking at this. Because people can just sort of sign off online and the assessments are so poor, there's much more incentive to get people onto PIP, and of course that's costing the economy billions. So we're going to need to see the detail, as you say, Dawn, but there will be the question of, yes, it's easy to say someone else should pay for this, foreign national should, but I will be really interested to see why they didn't do it before. I remember, of course, 2022, Rishi Sunak, for instance, running on 100 million of sort of foreign people coming to this country using the NHS, and that costing about 100 million a year, and it turns out that the costs to kind of correct that system were not worth it. So I'll be interested to see the mathematics and the formula that goes into saying this is actually well worth the money.
Just so pesky, James. The devil is in the detail, and no one ever seems to mention that, do they? Certainly not politicians. But there was some good news for Keir Starmer this week, wasn't there? We witnessed the French police on the beaches stabbing the dinghies, stopping those migrants coming over here. However, James, we were saying the devil is in the detail, and the detail on this is not all it seems, is it?
No, and of course, those stabbings, of course, happened ahead of the big Anglo-French summit we're expecting later this week. And that's going to be the occasion when Keir Starmer unveils the sort of one-in, one-out system to allow people to can come here, get some asylum, but also we'd send some people back to France. And I think this is all about optics, really. The Home Office has a real sort of show-don't-tell policy. They want to get the visuals of these boats being stabbed, etc., and coming back to France. But the danger is, of course, Dawn, is that just yesterday we had the figures come in from the Home Office. I think about 200 or so people were stopped in boats going across, but actually 800 still came here. So, 1 in 4 success rate really is not going to be making a massive dent in those figures. And we're already up to sort of 20,000 people have come here across small boats already. So it looks like it's going to be a record year for arrivals.
Yeah, I mean, just when, Keir Starmer said, look, no, we're stopping them. The boats are being stabbed. The boats won't take it. The French police actually issued a statement saying, no, this isn't a change of tactic. We're not doing this permanently. We can't do that because it's dangerous. And meanwhile, we've given them, what is it, James? $500 million, I think, we're giving to the French?
Yeah, 500 million over the last couple of years or so. So, I mean, look, this was, as they say, the French had put out a statement saying, this was a one-off. We didn't want to risk safety. There was special circumstances for this particular craft. But, of course, the Home Offices are going to be very much making the most of that and sharing it everywhere. While, of course, the fact is, boats are up than over last year.
Yeah, frightening. James, thank you very much. I would say you've cheered me up, but you haven't quite, to be honest with you. But it's always a joy talking to you. That's our Deputy Political Editor of The Spectator, James Heale there. Thank you very much, James.